It is my true privilege to pay tribute this evening to Meir and to the other 9 members of our show that served in the IDF. I remember the first time I was in Israel. I was a student actually, and I went to my dorm room, and one of my roommates was a soldier, and he was still wearing his uniform, and he had his gun with him, and I was overwhelmed. And I was trying to figure out why I was so overwhelmed. And believe it or not, it wasn't the neshek, it wasn't the gun. It was the uniform. I had a uniform, an Israeli uniform, with Tzahal written on it in my dorm room. And there was this sense of pride, and I remember thinking about it. And I said to myself, look at the privilege that these young men, or in some cases young women, are able to serve in an army. They're not soldiers, they're chayalim. There's a difference. A chayil, a eshes chayil, a woman of valor. They're engaged in valor, they're engaged in bravery. And not only that, but they're the shlichim. Every member of the IDF is a shliach, is a messenger, is a proxy for every other Jew that's ever lived. Imagine the Jews in the Holocaust, in the Warsaw Ghetto, if a group of Israeli soldiers came and aided them. Imagine Bar Kokhba, imagine Masada, imagine the Jews in Spain during the Inquisition, the Jews in Germany during the Crusades. Imagine if there were a state, and imagine if there was an army. And I salute all of you from our show that served in the army and wore the uniform. You were wearing that uniform for millennia, for the Jews, for Rabbi Akiva, who wasn't able to complete his rebellion against the Romans, and for all the Jews from all time that would have and could have used such an army, an ethical army, a moral army, an army with a purpose. There was an unfortunate incident in the late 40s or the early 50s where there was a convention of a Jewish organization taking place in Yerushalayim, and the organization was uncomfortable flying the Israeli flag. For they were not the most Zionistic organization, and what they decided is, since they had delegates from many, many countries, they flew the Israeli flag along with the French flag and the German flag and the Syrian flag, or whatever countries the delegates came from. And Rabbi Soloveitchik commented on this. He found it very insulting. He says, we're in a Jewish state. The state was very young at the time. And he said, the flag of the Jewish state, and we're talking about flags in the news these days, the power of the symbolism of the flag. And the flag of the Jewish state is not something that is just a flag. It is powerful, and it is kadosh. It is holy. And he taught the following halacha. If somebody dies, as we know, they're buried in tachrichim. They're buried in shrouds. The Chevra Kadisha has the shrouds for men, for women, and every Jew is given this burial in their tachrichim. But if somebody dies because they're Jewish, the halacha says that they are to be buried in the clothes and the blood in which they died, as a sign of the Kiddush Hashem. And Rabbi Soloveitchik said, the Israeli army uniform, the army of Tzahal, which is only a couple of years old at this point, but those uniforms and that flag have holiness, because every time it's worn, somebody's being Mekadesh Shem Hashem. The fact that there is an Israeli army, the fact that there is an Israeli army that conducts itself in the best possible way that it can, and it follows the rules that it can, minimizes casualties as best as it can, and it doesn't matter what the world thinks. But if the fact that we have such an army, we should have so much pride in those people that wear that uniform. And we should feel a sense of unbelievable pride, all of us, for those soldiers that are representing not only us, but they're representing all of Am Yisrael and every generation that ever lived in Am Yisrael. So I salute all of you who were Mekadesh Shem Shemayim to serve for Am Yisrael, and may we have no more casualties, and may the Israeli army that's Tzvagan al Yisrael bring us to the time of Mashiach. And it'll be because of their strength and realizing and recognizing that everything is in the hands of Hashem. Mazel tov to all of the honorees. Our show is so proud to count you among us.